Emily stared across the open office, her gaze locked on the cubicle of her colleague, Samantha. Everything about Samantha irked her, the way she breezed into the office every morning, her bright smile and bubbly attitude, the constant praise she received from their boss. It made Emily's blood boil. Emily had been working at this company for nearly a decade, climbing the ranks with hard work and dedication. She had been counting on that promotion to head of department for months, certain that it was finally her time. But then Samantha had waltzed in, fresh out of university, and snatched it right out from under her. "It's not fair," Emily muttered under her breath, clenching her pen so tightly her knuckles turned white. Samantha didn't deserve that position. Emily was the one who had put in the long hours, taken on extra projects, stayed late night after night. Yet somehow, that young upstart had charmed their boss and stolen what was rightfully hers. A plan began to form in Emily's mind, a devious plot to take Samantha down. She would find a way to get her fired, or at least demoted. Then the promotion would be hers, and she would finally get the respect and status she deserved. Over the next few weeks, Emily set her plan into motion. She started by finding small ways to undermine Samantha, nitpicking her work and making snide comments behind her back. When that didn't seem to have the desired effect, she upped the ante. Emily began feeding false information to their boss, painting Samantha as incompetent and unreliable. She fabricated reports of missed deadlines and sloppy work, carefully covering her tracks so it would be Samantha's word against hers. Slowly but surely, she could see the seeds of doubt being planted in their boss's mind. Just when Emily thought her plan was going to work, a wrench was thrown into the works. Their boss called an emergency meeting, and to Emily's horror, it was to announce that she was being demoted, not Samantha. "I'm very disappointed in you, Emily," their boss said sternly. "We've been receiving reports of your own work falling behind and you mishandling important projects. I have no choice but to reassign you to a junior position, effective immediately." Emily sat in stunned silence as the rest of the meeting played out. Samantha looked positively gleeful, a small smirk playing on her lips as she avoided Emily's gaze. It was a crushing blow, and Emily felt her carefully constructed plan crumbling around her. As she packed up her belongings that evening, Emily couldn't help but wonder how it had all gone so wrong. She had been so sure her scheme would work, that she would finally get the upper hand. But instead, karma had come back to bite her, and now she was the one facing the consequences. With a heavy heart, Emily trudged out of the office, already dreading the thought of having to start over in a junior role. All because of her own unbridled envy and desire for power. It was a bitter pill to swallow, but one she would have to learn to live with. Emily's demotion was the talk of the office for weeks. Whispers followed her down the halls, colleagues exchanging pitying glances as she passed by. She could feel the weight of their judgment bearing down on her, a constant reminder of her failure. Gone were the days of corner offices and executive lunches. Now Emily found herself relegated to a cramped cubicle, her nameplate unceremoniously changed to reflect her new, lowly title. It was a humiliating fall from grace, one that left her feeling utterly ashamed. Emily tried to keep her head down, focusing on the mundane tasks that now filled her days. But it was a constant struggle, and she found herself growing increasingly resentful and bitter. How dare Samantha act so confident and carefree, when it was Emily who had truly deserved that position? As the weeks turned into months, Emily's anger only continued to simmer. She spent her days plotting ways to get back at Samantha, to somehow expose her as the fraud Emily believed her to be. But every attempt seemed to backfire, only serving to further cement Samantha's reputation as a rising star in the company. Finally, one day, Emily decided she had had enough. She stormed into her boss's office, ready to unleash a torrent of accusations and demands. But the words died on her lips as she was met with a stern, unyielding gaze. "Emily, I've been hearing some concerning things about your recent behavior," her boss said, his tone grave. "Insubordination, making unfounded accusations against your colleagues, and neglecting your own work. I'm afraid I have no choice but to put you on probation, effective immediately." Emily felt the color drain from her face as the full weight of her actions sank in. Probation? This was not at all how she had envisioned this confrontation going. She had been so certain that she could manipulate the situation to her advantage, to finally get the upper hand. But now, it seemed, the tables had turned once again. As she slumped back to her cubicle, Emily couldn't help but feel a sense of despair washing over her. All of her carefully laid plans had crumbled, and now she was facing the very real possibility of losing her job altogether. The irony was not lost on her. In her single-minded pursuit of taking Samantha down, she had only succeeded in bringing about her own downfall. The following weeks were a blur of anxiety and uncertainty for Emily. Confined to her cubicle, she found herself constantly on edge, jumping at every summons from her boss or the HR department. The threat of termination loomed over her like a dark cloud, casting a pall over her every waking moment. As the days turned into weeks, Emily found herself becoming increasingly introspective. In the quiet moments, when her work was done and the office had settled into a lull, she couldn't help but reflect on the choices that had led her to this point. The envy, the scheming, the reckless disregard for her own responsibilities, it all came crashing down on her, a weight that threatened to crush her spirit. Gradually, Emily began to see her actions in a new light. The ruthless determination that had once driven her now seemed hollow, like the desperate grasping of a drowning woman. She had allowed her own ambition to blind her to the consequences of her actions, and in the process, she had betrayed the very principles she had once held dear. As this realization dawned on her, Emily felt a profound sense of shame wash over her. How could she have become so consumed by her own ego, so blinded by her desire for power and status? It was a bitter pill to swallow, but one that she knew she had to confront if she had any hope of salvaging her career, and perhaps even her humanity. With a newfound clarity, Emily began to make a concerted effort to turn things around. She threw herself into her work, tackling every task with a renewed sense of purpose and dedication. Gone were the half-hearted efforts and the passive-aggressive jabs at Samantha. Instead, Emily focused solely on proving her own worth, on demonstrating to her boss and her colleagues that she was capable of redemption. Slowly but surely, the tide began to turn. Emily's superiors began to take notice of her renewed commitment, and the whispers that had once followed her down the halls began to fade. And then, one day, her boss called her into his office, a look of cautious optimism on his face. "Emily, I have to say, I've been impressed by the changes I've seen in you these past few weeks," he said, his tone measured but not unkind. "Your work has been exemplary, and your attitude has been a complete turnaround from where it was. I think it's time we discuss the possibility of reinstating you to your previous position." Emily felt a rush of relief and gratitude wash over her. It was as if a weight had been lifted from her shoulders, the burden of her past mistakes finally starting to lift. And as she shook her boss's hand and made her way back to her cubicle, she knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter, one in which she would strive to be a better, more focused, and more ethical version of herself. With a renewed sense of purpose, Emily threw herself wholeheartedly into her work, determined to prove that she deserved the trust and confidence her boss had placed in her. Gone were the days of resentment and envy. Instead, she channeled her energy into becoming the best version of herself, both professionally and personally. As the weeks turned into months, Emily's hard work and dedication began to pay off. Her colleagues took notice of the change in her demeanor, the way she approached her tasks with a renewed vigor and focus. Gradually, the whispers and sidelong glances that had once followed her around the office began to fade, replaced by a growing respect and admiration for her efforts. And then, one day, Emily received the news she had been hoping for. She was being reinstated to her previous position as head of department. It was a bittersweet moment, tinged with a twinge of regret for the mistakes she had made in the past. But as she accepted the promotion, she vowed to herself that she would not repeat those same errors. "I'm grateful for this opportunity to prove myself," Emily said, her voice steady and confident as she addressed her colleagues. "I know I have a lot of work ahead of me to regain your trust, but I am committed to being the kind of leader this department deserves. Together, we will build a culture of integrity, collaboration, and excellence." Her words were met with a smattering of applause, and Emily could see the respect and admiration shining in the eyes of her team. It was a far cry from the resentment and mistrust that had once permeated the department, and Emily couldn't help but feel a sense of pride and accomplishment. As she settled back into her familiar corner office, Emily couldn't help but reflect on how much had changed in the past year. She had faced some of the darkest moments of her career, and she had emerged from them a wiser, more humble, and more resilient leader. Gone was the petty envy and cutthroat ambition that had once defined her. In its place, a renewed commitment to fostering a positive, collaborative, and ethical work environment. And as she looked out over the bustling office, Emily couldn't help but feel a sense of optimism for the future. She knew that the road ahead would not be easy, that she would have to continue to work tirelessly to rebuild the trust and respect of her colleagues. But she was more than ready for the challenge, driven by a deeper sense of purpose and a newfound appreciation for the power of redemption. In the months that followed, Emily's renewed focus and dedication paid off in spades. Under her leadership, the department flourished, with productivity and morale reaching new heights. Gone were the days of petty infighting and backstabbing. Instead, Emily had cultivated a culture of collaboration and mutual respect. And at the center of this transformation was Emily herself, a transformed leader who had learned the hard way the true cost of unchecked ambition and envy. She had made mistakes, hurt people, and nearly lost everything in the process. But through that crucible of self-reflection and redemption, she had emerged as a more compassionate, ethical, and effective manager. One day, as Emily was reviewing the quarterly reports, Samantha knocked hesitantly on her office door. Emily looked up, a twinge of trepidation in her chest, but Samantha's expression was not one of resentment or animosity. Instead, it was one of genuine admiration. "Emily, I just wanted to say how impressed I've been with the changes in the department," Samantha said, her voice soft but sincere. "The morale is higher than I've ever seen it, and the work we're producing is truly exceptional. I know things haven't always been easy between us, but I want you to know that I respect the hard work you've put in to turn things around." Emily felt a surge of emotion wash over her, a mix of gratitude and humility. She had spent so much time consumed by her own envy and resentment towards Samantha, only to realize that the true source of her struggles had been within herself all along. "Thank you, Samantha," Emily replied, her voice steady but warm. "I appreciate your kind words, and I want you to know that I'm grateful for the role you've played in helping me get to this point. Your professionalism and dedication have been an inspiration, and I'm honored to have you as a colleague." Samantha nodded, a hint of a smile playing on her lips, and Emily knew in that moment that she had truly turned a corner. The rivalry and animosity that had once defined their relationship had given way to a newfound respect and camaraderie, a testament to the power of growth, humility, and the willingness to learn from one's mistakes. As Samantha departed, Emily leaned back in her chair, a sense of pride and purpose swelling in her chest. The journey had been a difficult one, filled with setbacks and challenges, but she had emerged from it a better leader, a better colleague, and a better person. And she knew that this was just the beginning, that the lessons she had learned would continue to shape her path forward, guiding her towards a future of even greater success and fulfillment. The moral lesson of the story is that unchecked envy and ambition can lead to destructive behavior and ultimately, personal downfall. It highlights the importance of self-awareness, humility, and ethical conduct in professional settings, as well as the power of redemption and growth through introspection and learning from one's mistakes. If you enjoyed this chilling story and want to experience more like it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button to show your love for thrilling stories, and drop a comment below. What did you think of the story?